Welcome to Crafty Beach. This is Julie. I have 5 fun pumpkin spice projects for you today. But first, don't forget to hit subscribe, the bell to be notified when I post, and a thumbs up is very much appreciated. Okay, guys. The first one is going to be Home is Where You Smell Pumpkin Spice. This is a pumpkin sign from the Dollar Tree. I did thrift it though. It was still $1. And so I am just going to reuse this. I'm going to go ahead and just pop the little leaf and the bow off. I took the hanger off. And this side with the glitter on it is of course going to be my back, but I'm just cleaning it up so that I can cover it. And to do that, I'm just going to use some of this cheap contact paper from the Dollar Tree. Doesn't matter what it is, just something to make it nice and finished on the back of my pumpkin. Not really worried about the stem part because I'll do something with that. Now, normally I just go in here with sanding paper and start sanding that off. Since this was so round, I thought it might be easier to use an X-Acto blade, but I kind of found out that it wasn't, so about halfway through, I gave up and just went back to sanding, and it was fine doing the sanding method on it. It wasn't too crazy, the shapes. I just take it section by section and sand it. It's so thin that if you sand it a couple times, it just breaks away, and it gives you a perfect, clean cut. And you have a nice finished back on your pumpkin. And I'm just trimming it up there at the bottom. That was really the only tricky part. And I'm going to work on the back of this pumpkin, and I'm going to make a fun little pumpkin spice sign using some window decals from the Dollar Tree. I want it to be ivory, so I'm going to use that chalk paint by Waverly in the color of ivory. Just getting that tag from Goodwill off the back. And I'm just going to go in here and use a foam brush. And I think it took a total of 3 coats of the ivory chalk paint to go over that brown back on the back of that pumpkin. And I just want a good solid ivory base to start with. And one reason I wanted to do ivory is because I'm going to be using a window cling that has a clear background. And so I kind of want it to look like white with the writing on there. And so I'm just painting that, drying with my heat gun between layers and of paint, and just getting that where it's one solid coat of ivory. I love using window clings to decorate with. They're so easy. It's so much easier than breaking out your Cricut. And so inexpensive, and they have some really cute ones. I have been waiting and waiting and waiting for them to get them in, and this is how I attach them. I just use some of this matte Mod Podge from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to kind of do a thin coat all over, and I'm going to start piecing it together. This one was broken up into different pieces, but it kind of spells out Home is Where You Smell Pumpkin Spice. And I thought that was really cute. All of our projects today are going to be pumpkin spice themed because it is fall, y'all. It's pumpkin spice season. I love pumpkin spice everything. Oh, it's so good. And so I also want, it looks a little plain, so I'm also going to do some Mod Podge along the sides and use some more decals from the same decal sheet. They had some different kinds of leaves, and they all kind of go with my color scheme. And so I'm going to kind of pick out 4 of them and kind of put those in the 4 corners there of my sign. And this is going to be just a standalone sign. I'm going to hang this pumpkin sign like it was supposed to be, like a hanging sign with those holes on the top. And I'm just drawing my Mod Podge with my heat gun. Isn't that cute? And that is so easy. Such an easy way to decorate. And anybody can do it. You don't have to have a Cricut. So then I'm going to go over it with some more Mod Podge on top just to seal it down. I don't want it to look like a decal. I want it to look like part of my pumpkin sign. And I'm going to do a nice thin coat all over and then dry that with my heat gun and then give it a quick little sand to get any remaining pieces off. Then I thought it needed like something extra. So I broke out my half wood beads. I get these on Amazon. I will post a link below. They're fantastic. They're just like the wood beads that you use for garland, but they're like little half beads. So they're perfect for signs. And I'm just going to use a little dot of hot glue on each one. I'm not really measuring. I'm just kind of eyeballing where I think they will look good. And I am going to work my way around the entire pumpkin, gluing those little on there. And that really adds so much extra to these like thin Dollar Tree signs. It really makes it look substantial and fancy. So once I get one side down and the bottom, I'm going to kind of space them out so they'll be symmetrical on each side. So I don't end up at the end with a space that's not big enough for my piece. And there we go. We're all half beaded up. Okay, now I want those to be ivory too. So I'm going to go in just with a chunky brush so I can get around the round ball shape of the beads and just start painting all of those. I kind of wish I would have painted them first because I kind of want a distressed look on it, and it was a little harder to do after the fact. Next time maybe I will go ahead and distress that first, but I've already got them all on there, so I am going to paint those all ivory. And this little sign for pumpkin spice is really coming together. It's a pretty large pumpkin sign. It is super cute. And then you know I have to distress. So I'm just going to use that same ivory chalk paint, since I already have my chunky brush, and just start distressing over the front of my sign. That too is going to make it look less like a decal and more like a hand-painted sign. And then I'm just wiping off the excess with just a paper towel. I don't really want to use a wet paper towel or wet wipe because there's not a lot for that to paint to stick to. The Mod Podge is a little bit. If I didn't have the Mod Podge on there, it would probably wipe right off. And this is when I decided I wanted to distress all of the beads. So I'm going in there with just that agave chalk paint by Waverly and a chunky brush and lightly distressing all of those. Going back over them with just a baby wipe to wipe off the excess. And I wanted something just to give it more of a coastal farmhouse vibe. And so I kind of go back and forth with ivory and agave. And then I go ahead and distress the main part of my sign with a little bit of agave too, just to tie that in with the beads. And I'm just going to reattach the same hanger that came on there. I just have to poke a hole through the vinyl that I put on the back of my sign. I'm going to reattach the original hanger, and then I need to take care of the stem. And so the easiest thing for a pumpkin stem is just to wrap it in twine. And that is what I'm going to do here. I'm just going to wrap it all the way up. I underestimated how big that stem was, so I'm just tying another piece onto the back of that and just wrapping that all up. And twine makes the perfect finish for a pumpkin sign. And we're almost there with this project. I'm going to go ahead and burn off my excess fibers on there. And then I thought I would just go ahead and use that metal leaf that came on it, but it needs a little something. So I'm going to paint it ivory, and then I'm going to distress that with that agave. And we're going to have a nice little blue and white leaf to go with our little pumpkin spice sign. And I think this turned out really cute. I'm just going to attach that back to the top with a little bit of hot glue, and we're all done. I thought we were done. I wanted a little pumpkin tendril. There's always one more thing I have to add on. So I'm just using that wire jute from the Dollar Tree and wrapping it around a pen and then gluing that onto the back of my stem. And now we're really done. Isn't that cute? Okay, the next project we're going to do is stacked books for fall for pumpkin spice. I'm using one of these boxes from the Dollar Tree. This is the one that has little grooves on the side, and so when you turn it upside down, it looks just like stacked books. And it has a hole on each end, and so I just covered that with masking tape just to cover that up. It doesn't do a fantastic job, but it does allow you to paint over it. I'm going to have my middle book be ivory. So I'm going to go ahead and do that one first. And so I just painted all around. On the sides, you have to kind of guess where the book would be because there's not grooves on the side. And just giving that a quick speed up with my heat gun, and then I can start working on my other two books for my stacked books. I'm going to mix just that pumpkin chalk paint by Waverly with a little bit of ivory just to get this lighter shade of orange. I think this is really pretty, and that's going to be my top book. So I do the bottom of it in that color, and then I can use some of this painter's tape from the Dollar Tree and just tape off my second book so that I can paint the rest of that top book orange. And these little stacked book DIYs from the Dollar Tree are so easy. People charge so much money for these, and they are so easy to make yourself, and you can put whatever you want on there and do whatever colors you want. I'm going to do a lot of this like light orange, ivory, and light blue today. I think those colors are really pretty together for fall, and they totally go with my coastal decor. So once I get my orange one done, I'm going to tape off again. The middle book, I have to do it twice because my tape's wider than the book. And then I'm going to mix a color for the bottom book. I'm going to mix agave, scallion, and ivory together. And it's going to give me like this really beachy, pretty blue. I love this color. I wish they sold it in this color because I would totally buy it. And I just do a quick paint job on my bottom book. And I can go ahead and remove the painter's tape from that. Now, I'm going to use my Cricut to cut out letters for my 3 books so that it will look nice and pretty, but you can totally hand paint that yourself or use like little stickers from the Dollar Tree. So my ivory book is in the middle, and so I'm going to use orange vinyl for that. I just went on Cricut Design Space and typed in pumpkin spice everything, and on different lines, and pumpkin and everything are going to be white, and spice is going to be in orange. And I'm just using some scrap orange vinyl I had, and then the white vinyl is from the Dollar Tree. And I used the skinny font, which looks like the Ray Dunn font, and I kind of knew better to make it this small in the skinny font because it's really hard to read. And I did mess up one of the letters, but that's okay. I can always just go ahead and fix that with a paint pen, trying to make sure everything is down. And then I am just going to use my paper transfer paper there to transfer those onto my books. I love that stuff. It is so good. I'll post a link below for that. And I'm using my little Cricut bright pad to help me see because that white vinyl from the Dollar Tree is really hard to see. It does help a little bit. So I have my 3 titles on 3 different pieces of transfer paper, and I just have to peel off the backs and I can apply those to my little books. And I think this turned out really cute. I love pumpkin spice everything for sure. And I had an idea to make a little gnome, and I thought a little stacked books would look really cute next to a little pumpkin spice gnome. So if your letters do fall off like that, you can pick them back up and rearrange them as long as they're not really good and stuck yet. This one, part of my E ripped off, but I have some little tiny white paint pens that I picked up on Amazon, and I'm just going to go in there and just fix that. It's a nice fine tip on there, and you can barely tell that I messed that up because I did not want to go back to my Cricut and recut that out for one little letter. So I'm going to make a little decoration to go on it. I'm going to use a domino from the Dollar Tree and another one of these decals. This one is a little cup of pumpkin spice, and I'm going to attach that to the back of my wood domino with just some of that matte Mod Podge. And then this stuff is so easy to cut. I'm just using my KitchenAid scissors, and I'm going in and trimming around the edges of my pumpkin spice cup. And this is going to be a little decoration for the front of my stacked books. I'm going to wrap them in ribbon and then decorate them with this little pumpkin spice cup. So once I get it cut, I can just sand it a little bit. And I'm going to use this orange and white gingham ribbon from the Dollar Tree. Just attach it to the inside of my box with a little bit of hot glue. And it looks like my 3 little stacked books are tied together. And on the front of that, I'm going to attach that little pumpkin spice latte that we made. And I'm going to leave the top empty because I plan just to put a pumpkin on top. And I got this little pumpkin at the Target dollar spot. It's the perfect color and it's the perfect size just to stack on top of our little pumpkin spice books. And that project is complete. Okay guys, we're gonna make a pumpkin spice gnome using these supplies from the Dollar Tree. I'm gonna use a men's sock, like one of the little ankle socks from the Dollar Tree. You get 3 pairs for $1. And I'm just using some of these pebbles from the Dollar Tree that I had left over in the bottom. You just have to use something to weigh your gnome down so that it doesn't fall over. You can use rocks, rice beans, whatever you've got. And then I just need to stuff my sock to make a gnome body. I'm just using the inside of an old bed pillow. I always try to hang on to those when I replace them because it is a great source for polyfill for crafting. Now, the beard and the nose you see there are on a Dollar Tree Christmas stocking. They just came out with those at my Dollar Tree. And it's such a great way to make a gnome. I was so excited to see them. But it's fairly large, so I need my gnome to be a fairly big gnome. So once I get it about tall enough that I think I'm just going to tie off with some twine and cut off the excess sock. And that is going to be the body of our little gnome. But I want it to be blue. So I am going to use this scarf I have left over from the Dollar Tree from a previous DIY and cover the body with that. It's not quite wide enough, but if I use 2 pieces, I think I can make it work. So I am just going to gather all that fabric around the top, kind of gather it like I did this sock, as tight as I can against the body of the gnome, and then tie that off with twine. Cut off the excess fabric and then turn it the other way so that I can make sure that I got all of the sock good and covered. And a lot of times when I do this, I use like the color sock that I need, but I didn't have a blue sock and I had this blue scarf laying around. You never know what kind of fabric you can get at the Dollar Tree. Scarves work great for many projects. So I just tied that one off with twine too. Cut off any excess twine and fabric, and look how easy it is to take this beard and nose off of the stocking. I'm just using my heat gun and I'm just melting the hot glue they used to attach it, and now I have a gnome beard and nose. Oh my gosh, such an easy way to make a gnome. And I'm just going to need to attach it to the body kind of like that. So I'm just going to put a bead of hot glue on the beard and attach that around the top of my body, and then hot glue the little nose down. And it's a little big, but I'll give him a little bit of a haircut later. Just gonna glue that to the front of his body, and then I wanted an orange hat. So I thought I would use this chamois from the Dollar Tree that I had left over from my skeleton DIY, and just make a cone shape, a fairly large one for his little gnome hat. And I think that's going to work. But I want to decorate it. And so I have heard that you can do iron-on with window decals. And so, you know, I'm always wanting to try something new. So I'm kind of looking through the window decals I have, seeing what would be good. And I ended up going with a pumpkin spice candle, because this is going to be my pumpkin spice gnome. And I have my mat down. I have the chamois. And then I covered the decal with just wax paper. And I'm just using my easy press until I think it's melted. And look how easy that was. It turned out fantastic. I'm going to use that technique more. And if you don't have an easy press, you can always just use an iron. So I'm shaping it back into the cone shape that I want. And I'm just going to use a little hot glue to get my cone started here. And just start rolling my gnome hat and gluing it down as I go. And then I am just going to cut off the excess fabric and kind of glue that down. I'm going to try it on, make sure it fits. And I'm just gluing the cone part to make it a little bit straighter and trimming it as I go to kind of make it look like a giant like party hat shape. And once I get it on there, I'm just going to use a little bit of hot glue around the insides of my hat and glue my gnome over what I had sticking out of the top of my gnome body and just a little bit over the top of the gnome nose, like the hat is covering his eyes. And I'm just trimming that to make sure it is straight. And I'm going to do a little bit of hot glue on each side of his nose to make sure that's good and tight around his nose. And then I'm going to glue down the seam just to make it look a little bit more seamless. And this gnome from the Dollar Tree is really coming together quickly. And I thought, you know what? I think he needs arms. And I didn't have any doll arms. A lot of times I use doll arms from the Dollar Tree, but I did have some of this felt left over. And I thought these would make perfect arms. So I cut 4 little rectangles. And then I cut 2 arms, and then I'm cutting another set of 2 arms. And that way I can stuff the little arms. And these arms were so easy to make. I need to get more felt, I think, for sure. And how I'm going to put that together is I'm just going to do a thin bead of hot glue along one side. And then put just a very tiny amount of polyfill in there. And then I'm going to glue down the other side, and easy peasy, we have a little gnome arm. The reason that I wanted my gnome to have arms is because, of course, I want him to hold a pumpkin spice latte. And I was crafting for a while, so my camera did die. So I did lose the footage of me making the pumpkin spice latte. But basically, I did the same exact thing that I did with the hat. I used that ivory felt that I had there, and I ironed on a decal of a pumpkin spice latte cup. And you'll see here in a minute what it looks like when it is done. And I'm just trimming those arms up, and we are ready to apply our arms to the side. What I do is I just kind of glue it underneath his hat, kind of right where the beard matches up with the body. And that is arm number 1. And then I just kind of do the same thing on the other arm. I was crafting away and I had no idea my camera died. Ugh. I have a pretty new iPhone, but I need a newer one. But they're telling me it's too early. So there is the pumpkin spice latte cup that he's holding there in his hand. And again, I made that with a decal and that felt. And then I thought it would be really cute just to glue a little pumpkin upside down into the top of his hat where there was a little hole there on the end of the chamois. And we have a pumpkin spice gnome. He's so cute. Okay, next project are pumpkins. I got 3 of these little wood pumpkins from the Dollar Tree. And I'm just using my heat gun and a blade to get those tags off the back, because I want to decorate that side of the pumpkins. The other side has a lot of glitter on there. Then to get the adhesive off, I just used a magic eraser and some Goo Gone. And we have a clean surface. I'm just using a heat gun to take off the little raffia bows from the other side. And I didn't really care what color these were because I planned on doing my color scheme that I wanted to do on these. And my plan is to attach those little wine glass decorations they have at Dollar Tree. I forgot the name of Dollar Tree. And so I'm just going to cover the glitter side of these pumpkins with some of that contact paper again. Just cutting out 3 pieces and covering up the glitter. If you don't mind the glitter, you could just leave it like that and have a 2-sided sign. And then I just use my sanding block and I go around all of the edges and take off the excess vinyl. I love these pumpkins. They're so cute. I made 3 from a previous DIY this fall where I did sea creatures on them and with stencils, and they turned out really cool. And I wanted to try to do some more. The little decals I have there say that you can only use them on glass or super smooth surfaces, but you know I'm always willing to try new things, so I'm going to try to put them on wood, and you will see in a minute how that works. And I'm going to do the same color scheme on these pumpkins that I've done on my other projects. I'm going to paint this little pumpkin ivory, and I'm covering up that bright orange, so it did take several coats of the ivory chalk paint to cover that up. I started with a thin coat, did the edges, and going in here with just a second coat. Now this pumpkin, I want to make a light orange, so I'm using that pumpkin chalk paint mixed with some ivory. It gives me that beautiful shade of orange, and just painting the front and the sides of that pumpkin as well. I thought these decals would be a really easy way to decorate these pumpkins. Especially for people that don't have like a Cricut machine. Now this one I'm going to do pretty much the same shade that it already is, but it's going to touch it up a little bit from where I took the tag off. And that one I mixed pool, scallion, and agave together. And got like the perfect shade that I was looking for. And that one was really easy to paint because I was barely changing the color on that one. And once I get all of my pumpkins painted, I am just drying that with my heat gun. And again, it did take several coats of the ivory to get that pumpkin nice and white. And I do a second coat on the orange pumpkin as well, just to cover up that orange paint. Getting those all dry with my heat gun, and I just had to keep going over that white one, but I did finally get it. And then I want to distress my orange pumpkin and my blue pumpkin with just a little bit of that ivory chalk paint and a chunky brush, just to give them more of a little coastal vibe. And here we go, experiment number 1. I do the most detailed one first, which was probably a mistake. I peeled off the back and stuck that down to my pumpkin and then scraped it with my little Cricut scraper. And this one says Happy Fall, y'all. And this one says Hello, Autumn. So I get those all down and I scrape them down. The package says to use your fingernail, but I thought this would work, but it was not really working. So I just kept scraping. It really was not working. So I decided to use something sharper. I start using this scraper, and this worked better, but it still was a lot of scraping. It really did not like being attached to wood, but I do finally get it to work. I thought after I did this project and I lost a few letters that it was going to be a total fail, but I get better as I go. So this image was simpler, and I scrape and check and scrape and check. And I only kind of messed up one letter on that one. So that one went way better. And then this one, I could kind of see whether it scraped off the paper or not. They were just really on there. They did not like being put on wood, but I got it to work. Look at that. So I decided to go back and line up my orange one again and try to repair the damage when I gave up on this one. And I was able to fix it enough where I can just go in and touch that up and fix it myself. And I'm just kind of sanding those down just a little bit since I kind of messed up some of the vinyl on it. So this one I just use a fine tip Sharpie, and I'm just touching up the letters that I kind of screwed up and didn't get aligned like super well, and any missing bits there, and I was able to salvage it. Yay! And then I am just kind of touching and distressing. I wanted to stress over the decals a little bit with some of that chalk paint, just to kind of make it look more hand painted and less like a decal. I couldn't decide if I should have put down Mod Podge first. That probably would have made it worse, actually. And then to do the stems, I'm just using twine. So I just tie that off and wrap it around until it covers up the little wood stem. And that also covers up the leftover hot glue that was all over it from the raffia bows that were on the other side. And so I'm going to do that same thing for all three of my pumpkins and wrap those off. I thought this was going to be a fail. I'm really glad that I was able to salvage these little pumpkins because I think they turned out really cute. And I distressed the orange pumpkin and the blue pumpkin with the white. And I do go in and distress my white one as well because it did feel a little bit too white. So we have twine on all three, and I'm just using pumpkin to distress that one. And I kind of use too much, but if you use a baby wipe, you can kind of keep wiping it until you get your original color to shine through. And that gave me a perfect amount of distress. And then I thought they needed leaves. I'm just using these little leaves off of an old sprig I had from the Dollar Tree. And I'm just gluing them onto the stems, kind of in 3 different directions. They're kind of a fuzzy leaf. And I think those are the perfect final touch for our little pumpkins. What do you think? Okay, guys, I'm going to make a fake pumpkin spice latte. Okay, I'll show you. I had many attempts at this. So I took one of these 2 packs of coffee cups from the Dollar Tree. I filled it with plastic shopping bags, and then I'm using spackle and one of those icing bags from the Dollar Tree because I was told that you could do this. Well, it was too thick, right? Way too thick. So I try again. And I get a new bag and I put water in it because that was the advice, was to put water in it. And this is what happened when I put water in the spackle. It just turned into a big pile of flat nothingness. And I'm like, I want this to look like whipped cream. So I'm not going to give up. So I'm using my other cup. And I'm using some of this caulk from the Dollar Tree. I end up using 2 tubes of it. The first one I just squeeze in with just the opening in the caulk tube. And then the second one I get more creative and I put one of those cake decorating things on the end of it and just kind of hold that on there so that I can squeeze out a pattern that kind of looks like whipped cream, which is what I want for the top of my pumpkin spice latte. And this worked way better than the spackling. I don't know how they got that to work. I really, really don't. Then I'm going to take a couple of cinnamon sticks and poke those in through my fake whipped cream and just kind of cleaning up the edges and sprinkling it with just some pumpkin spice. Now I need to decorate the cup for my pumpkin spice latte. So I'm just using a little ivory paint to cover up the little image that was already on the cup. This was one of those 2 packs from the Dollar Tree. Has like some blue writing on it because I want to use a window cling to decorate that. I should have done the cup first because you can't really see what I'm doing because I'm trying not to mess up the top because it's not dry yet. But I'm just using Mod Podge here and adding my window cling to the front of that. I'm kind of glad that I didn't do that first actually, since this was my second or third attempt for my second cup attempt. And I was able to get that to work. And this is so much fun. It really looks like a pumpkin spice latte. I went over the top of that decal with Mod Podge as well. and I'm just drying that with my heat gun. And it's a little plaid window decal of a pumpkin spice latte cup. And I thought that was perfect for the front of our pumpkin spice latte. Then, of course, I have to distress it. So I'm going in there with some ivory chalk paint and a chunky brush just to distress it a little bit to make it look a little bit less like a sticker or a decal and part of the cup. And this looks so cute on my coffee bar. And we are ready for the final reveal. Home is where you smell pumpkin spice. This is our white bead pumpkin we made using that Dollar Tree pumpkin and window decals. Doesn't it look cute? I really love how this turned out. It looks old, it looks distressed. And here is our little pumpkin spice gnome holding his pumpkin spice latte with his pumpkin spice candle hat and our little stacked books that read pumpkin spice everything with our little pumpkin spice cup. Aren't these cute? I think the gnome is by far my favorite project today. And I think he turned out so cute. And I love those stockings from the Dollar Tree. What a find. If you see them, grab them for sure. And here is our little pumpkins that we made using those glass decals from the Dollar Tree. So Dollar Tree pumpkins and Dollar Tree decals. It was a little tricky to get those scraped on there, but we were able to save this project and they turned out really cute. And here's our little fake pumpkin spice latte. I put this on my coffee bar and I think it looks so real and cute. I'm so glad I did that project. And this is what it looks like on my coffee bar. That I did a black cat theme. I did that in a previous video for my coffee bar. And it is the perfect little final touch here on the front. What did you guys think? What was your favorite project today? Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you haven't. Happy decorating, everyone. Bye.